There's something like outside my door. Look,
You need to go and check.
oh yeah.
I have not seen any creepy things, but I do hear patients shouting.
They call you guys Missy, right? Uncle.
Oh, for real?
Sometimes I have to deal with patients who give me flowery language. Feels like, it's like I didn't sign up for this.
I spent so much time dressing the wound. It was so nice. It's so satisfying to look at. And then the doctor was like, yeah, open it up please because I want to take a look.
Hi everyone, my name is Daryl.
Hello, and my name's Estelle, and welcome to another episode of Thriving as
A nurse.
a Nurse.
For some reason, I feel like we're in a hospital today.
Oh, why? We're in the
I-
same setting though.
I wonder why.
Oh, because they're in scrubs and because they're nurses. I get it now. Okay, how about you guys introduce yourselves to our audience for today?
Hi, I'm Senior Staff Nurse Kimberly.
Hi, I'm Senior Staff Nurse Joshua.
Okay, maybe you guys can describe to us what it's like working as a nurse. And I also know you guys have dual roles, right? So maybe we can start with Joshua first.
So currently I work in a cardio-respi ward.
Whoa.
I'm also the chairperson of the Nursing Work-Life Governance Council. And I'm also a member of the Nursing Informatics team.
So many titles.
And he ended it with a smile like a easy. Wait, how about you, Kimberly?
So I'm currently working in a medical short stay ward. On top of that, I'm doing a hybrid role where I do communications and organisation development for Tan Tock Seng. So I'm currently the creative lead of the Nurses of TTSA's social media pages, and I'm also doing our very own podcast called Roll Call.
So is this like a CCA for you guys? Or is it like actually part of your job scope?
It is part of our job scope.
Yep. So I think at the start, for us, it probably started off as a little bit more like a CCA, but I think now that we're a bit more senior, then it's we have a little bit more protected time to do our other portfolios.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. All right. I mean, actually, what brought you guys into this line? Because, I mean, when you think about nursing, you just think, okay, taking care of people. But you mentioned like TikToks, analytics. It's like words you do not put together when it comes to nursing. Okay, so maybe you could tell us why you chose this line and how you ended up doing this. Yeah.
The passion of nursing for me actually first started about 10 years ago when I was studying aeronautical engineering in Singapore Poly.
What? Wait, like airplane?
Yeah,
Like-
planes.
What?
Yeah.
It's like a prestige course, right? Quite hard to get in, right?
It's a very nice and very interesting course to pursue, to understand about the aviation industry. So about 1 year into the course, I actually had the opportunity. I actually had this opportunity to go on a humanitarian trip overseas, where I got a chance to work with doctors and nurses. So I first thought to myself, maybe it's something that I want to be part of for the rest of my life.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
to do something that brings about meaning. Yeah, so that's how I end up in nursing.
Okay, so I kind of did like a career switch, kind of like Josh also. So before I did nursing for my degree at NUS, which is where I met Josh, very passionate guy, really passionate about healthcare and nursing. So I was doing my diploma in mass communications at Ngee Ann Poly. So I was really hoping to be like you guys, like in the media industry, and I really was passionate about like radio and music at that time. I think that stemmed from me being like a fangirl growing up, but not gonna lie. So that was the industry that I really wanted to be in. When I graduated, or was close to my graduation from poly, right? I think during that year was pretty tough. My grandfathers, especially, they were like in and out of the hospital quite a lot, and I remember feeling very lost. Yeah, I was trying to help my grandma like take care of him like night shift. Because he had really bad dementia. So I think I felt very helpless at that time. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. So after I graduated, I was kind of thinking like, okay, should I continue with comms or should I just take this opportunity to try something new? So I think my parents, especially my dad at that point in time, he was like, hey, because my grandma used to be a nurse. So he was like, why don't you just try? Growing up, I think like I was in Girls Brigade and all that, right? So yeah, so like we would do those trips to like nursing homes. I think everyone could kind of tell that I really love old people, like those cute aunties and uncles. I really have a very soft spot for them. So they were like, okay, like we can kind of imagine seeing you as a nurse. So I kind of tried for a while. I didn't really commit to it, so I didn't take up any bond or scholarship. I think until the end of my first year, then I went for a community hospital posting, really bonded with the cute old aunties over there. Then that was when I was like, yeah, okay, this is what I really want to do. Yeah, then that was when I signed up and took a scholarship. And bonded with Tan Tock Seng. So I've only been mostly at Tan Tock Seng like my entire nursing life. Yeah.
I think for those who don't know, right, Kim actually hosts a podcast for Tan Tock Seng Hospital called
Yeah.
Roll Call.
Roll call, yeah.
Do
Amazing.
you want to talk about that a bit?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Oh, thank
Plug
you.
it in, plug,
yes,
let's
plug,
go.
plug. So roll call in nursing, in a nursing sense, right, is when we do handover. So usually that's like when the morning shift example is handing over to the afternoon shift. Then that's when you pass all like the important messages, things to note and all that. So I think that was a really, one of my friends suggested it, and I think it's such an apt like title for a podcast. So I took on this portfolio, I think early last year. My whole social media comms portfolio when I first joined nursing, right? I think it was more like a CCA kind of thing. People were aware of like the skill set that I had. But I think, of course, as a nurse, like your foundation in clinicals is very, very, very important.
Yeah.
So I think only once I kind of stabilized, then that was when the bosses were like, okay, it's important that we try our best to really connect with the younger generation of nurses. And, you know, like, I think as with any industry, there's a lot of things that like maybe like management or the higher ups, there's a lot of important information and knowledge that they try to pass down that once it reaches the ground, sometimes you can misunderstand a lot of things or the messages don't really get through. So I think that the podcast was really conceptualized to try to bridge that as much as possible. So I invite a lot of like leaders, ground nurses, nurses who are working in the wards to try to really bridge and help build that connection and that community and that bond. Yeah. So that is for Roll Call, the podcast. And then I think for social media, I think we've just been really inspired by like Nurse John, all the overseas nurses who I think it's really prominent, I think, in the US, but not so
Yes.
much in Singapore. But there are like doctors and all that who do social media content, but I think it's just not as common. It's a little bit of a boundary that I feel like you kind of need to be willing to push. So I
Yeah.
think that's why we're really, really thankful that I think especially at TTSH, like they've been willing to let us try.
that's
So that's why
great.
I'm really, really thankful.
I have a question for Josh. For Joshua, has anyone ever teased you for being a male nurse?
Maybe not so much, but they do mistake me as a doctor when I meet them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I just need to clarify with them that actually I'm not a doctor. I'm your nurse. Yeah.
But I think some older people they might get a bit uncomfortable with male nurses, right? Is that something that happens?
So it may. So actually, how we try to assign is that. So for the male nurse, they will only take care of male patients, and then for the female nurses, they can take care of both lah. This is in a general ward setting.
Okay.
I see, I
okay.
see.
If not, then we try to like, if let's say he's taking care of female patients, then if they need to go to the toilet or that, then usually the female nurses will try to help to cover and help. Then they will also see what they can help us with. It's really like a teamwork kind of thing.
I
Yeah.
see.
Okay. Do you know how they call you guys Missy, right?
Yeah.
Then what do they call you?
Missy also, right?
Missy also.
Uncle.
Uncle.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, but okay, lor.
A boy.
A boy also.
boy.
have,
Even
Oh,
those
boy.
older than you call you uncle.
they just okay. This is uncle. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's okay. Just own that title. Yeah, I'm the uncle of this ward. Okay. How about your working hours? Because I would assume, okay, based off what I watch on TV, it always feels like 24-hour shifts. Is it the case for you guys, or?
So the care and continuity of the continuity of care, right, is 24/7. Okay, but our shift typically we are looking at we have 3 shifts. So the morning shift, right, will be 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and the afternoon shift will be 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. and then night shift will be 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Wow, the night shift so long.
Yeah,
12
it's like
hours.
extra, like a little bit longer than the rest.
Yeah.
If you notice, they're actually overlapping times. So these are the time where roll call can happen.
Yeah.
The handover.
Handover
Yeah.
can
right.
happen. Yeah. So actually going beyond this, right? So TTSH is piloting like flexible work arrangements. So depending on the ward needs, operational needs, you can have shifts like maybe 8 to 12, and then you
10
can
to
have like 10 to
7.
7. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay.
So this is very dependent on the ward needs and then what the staff wants
Yeah.
for this arrangement to happen.
But do you all have fixed shifts? So like
Yeah.
I'm a morning shift person, then somebody only does the night shift.
We have like permanent day shifts and permanent night shifts. Yeah, so it really depends. Like you can really discuss with your manager and then see what what works and what the ward can afford to offer you also. So I think a lot of like young parents, they would prefer morning shift, even though like they have to wake up very early all the time. But they prefer that so they can go and pick up their kids after work, really spend time with their family, have dinner with their family. Some people prefer permanent night shifts because I mean, touch wood, but like usually night shifts, things are a little bit more
Peaceful.
So some of them prefer that because usually for permanent night shifts, you do like example 4 night shifts, then you get 3 days off. So some people really like that 3 days off in a row
I
to do their
see.
own things. Yeah. So
So there
What's the
is
night
that
shift?
balance.
yeah.
Because the night shift is longer, right?
Yeah, correct.
But that's dependent on whether you have enough manpower. Like sometimes no choice, you have to do night shift.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then when that happens, is it like in army where you can sell your shift? Because you know how in army sometimes we have to do weekend shifts, right?
Yeah.
Can you expose that?
I think it's allowed.
It's quite like a common
To
knowledge
sell
thing,
your
I think.
shifts?
Yeah, we
Like
do
mutual
that.
swap.
So it's like if I like let's say somebody doesn't have a girlfriend right in army, then weekend very free.
Oh, yeah.
So weekend like I can take your duty, but you pay me $100.
Ooh.
It happens.
Wow, monetizing off the lonely. That's horrible.
No, but it's win-win, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I like Daryl's way of describing minus of the monetary. No, there's nothing monetary here. Yeah, but we do trade some of our shifts. So I think this one of the beauty part about nursing. We can be a little bit more flexible with our work arrangements.
As long as everybody's in agreement. lah.
Yeah, as long as everybody is in agreement, as long as the ward operation needs are not compromised, as long as the skill sets are met.
Yeah, like I think some people don't really like shift work or they see shift work as like a very negative thing. But I think over the years, once you've worked for long enough, you kind of see how to take advantage of the shift work system. So example, like if let's say today I'm doing a morning shift,
Yeah.
then I end work at like 3. Tomorrow I'm night shift. If you think about it, I kind of like have a day off in between because I only start work tomorrow at 8 p.m. So if you kind of like work a routine around that, like some people like to go like Pilates or exercise in the daytime and go out with their friends and everything, then you can kind of like sleep in also, like I can go out tonight until late and then I can sleep in tomorrow. So if you kind of take advantage of the system, actually in terms of like work-life balance, you can kind of work things out after a while, but it will take time to get used to it, of course.
And you will actually also be surprised. Some of them, they will prefer their offs over on the weekdays because it's the time when they go to the shopping malls. And
Less crowded.
Less crowded.
Yeah, less crowd. Yeah.
So I mean, elaborating a bit more, I think about like the days off and all that. For us, because we also work on public holidays, so a lot of times our public holidays we can take off in lieu. So how some people do that, right? I think because for nurses we bid for our leave slots. Yeah, because there always has to be like a certain number of people on shift every week. So like not too many people can go on leave at the same time. So usually like a year before, we bid for like the leave slots for the next year. Like for this year, we started I think like bidding and all that like early October last year.
2024.
So you kind of have to like plan your leave for the entire year.
What do you
a
mean
year
by
before.
bid? Like with money?
No.
Like your plot, is it
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you're just
yeah.
throw in your...
Like you put like usually like so for my ward, because we are quite a small ward, right? So example like only 2 to 3 people can go on leave at the same time. So of course if like 4 people want that leave slot, then you kind of have to like discuss like okay like why do you want this leave? And then are you okay to exchange or maybe take another week? Yeah. So we kind of have to arrange it early to plan our manpower ahead of time. But I think something that I think a lot of nurses, especially more senior staff, have really kind of like use to their advantage, right, of this like leave system thing is that because we take our public holidays off, we are working on public holidays and we take the off in lieu, sometimes you can plan like pretty frequent breaks. And I think the beauty of nursing is that, like what Josh said, right, there's always this continuity of care. Like if I clock out, like my colleague will take over and take care of my patients. I don't have to, okay, now that obviously I'm doing social media, it's different because social media is 24/7. But like when you're in clinicals, right, it's really like, okay, I clock out, then I don't really have to worry like, oh, what's going to happen to my patient and everything because your friends take over, you know? So because of that, I think like we can really plan like pretty frequent offs. Like even if you want to take like 3-4 days, maybe you can like accumulate your public holidays from like the past 2 months. Then after that, okay, I take a short break and go to JB.
So like a flexible schedule, but at the same time, you don't have to take your work home with you in a sense. You can kind of have a peace of mind. Oh, that's so important at work, especially a peace of mind.
Yeah, definitely.
How about con?
Con.
You can pick one that's not super con, but maybe like something you wish has more room for improvement, you know, you feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some of the not so glamorous side about nursing is that sometimes we have to and we need to face some of the a bit more difficult patients who sometimes, you know, in the midst of their frustration, sometimes they may throw some flowery language at us, and we recognize that. And sometimes we may need to disengage from them for a while. And we as much as we show kindness, but when it comes to this kind of matter, we also need to be firm about it.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I do recall this family member.
Oh.
Yeah, and he was pointing fingers like to my face. It's like almost like an inch left. So my first reaction was I just had to step back first.
Yeah.
And then I had a colleague to come over to not only show support but also to be there for me as a witness.
In case anything happens.
Yeah, and
I
then
see, I
along the
see.
way, as we continue to engage, we also got in our nurse manager to step in.
What was this patient angry about?
There was some mismatch of expectations.
Meaning?
Hospital food is generally very healthy.
So it's about food.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it can be quite bland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we had to explain certain diets. Okay. Because of some swallowing issues, the food has to be blended.
Yeah.
Okay.
So imagine if you are eating blended pork, blended vegetables.
Oh.
It's not very nice.
Vibes.
Yeah. So through these difficult times, I try to explain, and then not only explain, but we also try to give hope to them that with enough rehabilitation, the swallowing may be improved.
So everything is done with intention. It's not on purpose to make your meal time like the worst experience. It's just because your health comes first. I see.
And I think for the patients, sometimes it's because they're going through like difficult times, right?
Yeah.
So they have a lot of frustration, and then they don't know how to handle that frustration.
Yeah. How to be mad? Like if you talk to me like that, I'll just be okay. I need to calm down. Like okay, but I need to calm down. But maybe you said they were going through it,
Yeah.
and then that's so unfortunate for you. But thank goodness you feel. It seems like you have a lot of patience.
Harmony.
Yeah, harmony imbued in you.
I think for me, right, because like earlier I was talking to Estelle about it. I was saying that like for comms and nursing, I think the reason why I really love both so much is because like ultimately what the purpose of both is to really build that connection with people and that community with people. So I think that's the part of nursing that I really enjoy. So I remember when I was still pretty new, very hectic shift. I think I was afternoon shift. I had this patient who couldn't really talk, but she was in a lot of pain. So most of the time she would just kind of be like groaning in pain. And I think like everyone was trying to like fall asleep. I think some of the patients were getting a bit annoyed. Like the aunties were getting a bit annoyed because like she was making quite a bit of noise. So I think I already handed over to my next shift, like the night shift.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of chilling and waiting to clock out. So I was thinking, okay, what can I do? What can I do? Like, if that was like my grandparents, or if that was me, like,
Yeah.
what would I want to do? Because I already gave her like a lot of painkillers. You kind of have to wait till you can give the next dose. So clinically, there wasn't anything else that I could do at that point in time. So what I did was, I was like, okay, bring back to my student times, right, where like I can just help to provide like that emotional support. So I kind of went to her bed, then I held her hand, then I was just like stroking her hair. Then I kind of like sang to her a bit. Yeah, like so I started singing to her and everything. Then after a while, I think like after like 5 minutes, then she fell asleep. So like those are one of the moments, right, where I always remind myself, like, as much as of course we are here to like support the patients clinically and medically, like this part is so important to them because their family members can't be around all the time.
Yes.
And sometimes they are just really sad or upset because she can't communicate also, right? So sometimes she might probably have been like just missing her family. She just really want that human touch and just to be reassured that like there's someone there for you. So yeah, that moment I think like really, really has stuck with me. So it's really sometimes like the small things that you can do for your patients that really matter a lot to them.
Wow. Well, that was very beautiful though. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you for sharing. How are you, Joshua?
For me, I think it is the seeing that my patients, they get to go home.
Yeah.
They get to say, hey, thank you, bye-bye. That itself is enough for me.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Job well done, everybody. Actually, I have a question because you brought up about, like shows and the dramas, like real life dramas. How about like when you watch Grey's Anatomy as like a nurse and when you watch shows like that?
Yeah.
Is it the same also? Or are there moments you're like, I don't think that is real, that doesn't happen? Are there any cases?
Okay, so for Grey's Anatomy,
Specifically or like show?
when a patient calls,
Yeah.
you have 4 doctors attending to the patient. This doesn't usually happen.
Oh. Usually who shows up? Is it like 4 nurses actually and like maybe 1 doctor?
Usually it is one nurse first.
Oh, one?
Yeah.
Only 1? Oh, so there's no even 4 people, just 1?
No.
The doctors in the show are too free.
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah,
It usually takes like some time, right, for the doctor to. The doctors are always like busy doing something elsewhere.
Yeah, I think for the show, they need to showcase the hot and eligible doctors
Real.
first so that the show is interesting, maybe. I don't know. Any other things other than the number of doctors showing up? Like the drama, is it usually that intense also where people like, when nurses don't agree with each other or doctors don't agree with each other?
Okay, I think in the day-to-day, of course, like in the shows, it's a little bit more exaggerated. But I think realistically speaking, like, you do have very different personalities in nursing. I think that like these kind of medical shows really highlight that. Sometimes you tend to clash because, nursing is so diverse.
Yeah.
You don't just have like Singaporeans. We have so many international nurses on board also. And learning and figuring out everyone's kind of routine and pattern and personalities sometimes can be quite challenging. But I think after working for very long, you kind of get used to it. Yeah, you know that, okay, this doctor likes to do things this certain way. This doctor usually comes about this time after he go and get his coffee, Then this nurse usually likes things done this certain way or this room like tidied up a certain way. So once you kind of get familiarized with that, I think like as with any relationship, like once you have that time to kind of familiarize yourself with that, right? Then you just accommodate to each other, you try to compromise, then you find that harmony when it comes to working with your colleagues. I think it's the same in any industry, probably. Yeah.
I was watching this clip actually, right? I don't know what show it was, but it was this very senior nurse attending to a patient. Fiction. And then there was a junior doctor. So the doctor just joined. So he's very like amateurish, very new. So the senior nurse was just like diagnosing and then telling the doctor what to do. And for somebody who has worked 5 years at nursing, is that something you can do? Like for a fresh grad come in, then you're like, hello doctor, this is how you do it lah.
I think, okay, so for doctors, right, usually they rotate around every few months. But for nurses, we are stationed in like this is my ward.
Correct,
like
correct.
this is my area, So when the doctors kind of rotate in, I think especially when they are more junior, maybe they just graduated, there's a lot of like protocols and like the way that, you use the system and stuff that they're not familiar with. Because they rotate, I think, not even just among different disciplines, but they rotate among different hospitals. Also. So sometimes our systems are very, very different. And when they come to TTSH, they are not familiar with it. Yeah, so I mean, of course, we are nice to them at the start. No, all the time. We're nice to them all the time, and we kind of like try to help to orientate them. Like, this is how we do things here and everything. But yeah, I mean, like sometimes maybe we are familiar with, I think in our certain areas, like for mine it's a short stay. So we do see like, example, like some common cases is like rhabdomyolysis, like those patients, especially younger patients who come after spin class.
The spinning one.
Or like dengue patients or patients that are coming with giddiness. And I think for Josh, he sees a lot more like heart and lung cases. So they tend to maybe be a little bit more sick. But because like our specialties, I think, are so defined, right?
Yeah.
We are very familiar with like, okay, this particular patient come in for this kind of case. Like usually these are the things that the doctors will order. These are the kind of like care plans that we have to do as nurses. So I think especially when doctors are a little bit more junior or if they come in from a different area, then we don't tell them what to do, but we will recommend like, hey, do you think that maybe ordering this particular thing might be beneficial for the patient? Then they'll be like,
We share with them what are the best practices.
yeah.
Another question I always wanted to ask, because you know, like hospitals, right? Especially at night, especially you do night shift, right? Is it extra creepy? Because, bruh, a lot of movies. I've had friends also who have like personal experiences with like, you know, in hospital, a bit like dodgy. So have you guys experienced it before at night for night shift? Maybe you can start with Joshua, because you're very harmony, very chill, right? Maybe for you, you know how to deal with all this, like, you know. Have you experienced anything?
Okay, personally, I have not experienced. Yeah, so
Nothing?
I have not seen any creepy things.
Never hear
Yeah,
voice, like
yeah.
people talking or like
Yeah.
running down the halls kind.
But I do hear patients shouting. Yeah. So sometimes we get like patients who are experiencing dementia, or sometimes are having some delusion, and then sometimes they lose orientation of their surroundings. So sometimes at night they tend to shout, and we will try our best go to them and to calm them down, and then maybe to encourage some conversation with them.
Yeah,
okay.
like for me, I also thankfully have not seen anything. I would say my luck is quite good. But yeah, you hear quite a lot from the patients. Like they not only see things, but they'll hear things. Then they press the bell. Then you go, like there's something like outside my door. Like, oh,
You need to go and check.
yeah, and like, but as a nurse, like, oh, sorry, like, but as a nurse, right, like you have to put on that brave front. And I think also because it's your area, you're like, I'm not scared of anything, you know. So, but the funny thing, I was talking to a friend about this recently. But as nurses, right, sometimes your first instinct is not like, oh my gosh, this place is haunted and there's a ghost. But like sometimes our first instinct is this patient having hallucinations? Or like, is this patient suddenly like, you know, is this like did something happen to their condition that like suddenly they're seeing or hearing things? Then you have to ask the doctor to come and assess. So like it becomes very medical.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess that's the difference between like on like outside or other industries when you like see or hear things. Like in our place, like you really need to assess properly to make sure that like it's not a medical kind of thing. Yeah.
So in some cases, like maybe it's really knowing that maybe they see a real ghost will be better than them having hallucinations. You know,
True.
kind of situation. And actually, I watched this TikToker called like Nurse John also. He mentioned in the same vein of them like shouting and screaming, sometimes he talks about how they're like climbing up on walls and like flinging, you know, stuff around. Does that happen in Singapore also? Like, have you had cases of like patients
So
climbing?
the climbing up, no.
Thankfully, no.
Okay, the flame of things, maybe yes. Yeah, I think in Singapore
of-
context,
Bodily fluids.
Only fluids, Milo.
diapers, yeah.
Like used diapers or like
diapers,
used
clean
diapers.
diapers.
Yeah.
wow.
That's not very common, right?
It is not very.
I think depends on which discipline that you're in probably. Because in a certain kind of like, I mean, in certain disciplines where like, let's say in a geriatric ward where you have maybe more patients that are admitted for things like really bad dementia, behavior issues,
right, of
then obviously
course.
these things will be a bit more common in those specific places. Yeah, but my place currently, because it's a short stay, thankfully not so bad.
Okay.
But I heard that in Singapore, hospitals are quite understaffed of nurses. So there's not enough nurses, and we have a lot, because aging population, right? We have a lot of patients. And then because of that, when you are actually working like on shift, it's super hectic that like you don't have time to eat. Is that true?
I think, again, I feel like a lot of things that we kind of share about, right, it really is something that like comes with experience. So for example, when I was a noob nurse, right, like when I just joined, right, like
Noob nurse.
I didn't know how to prioritize my tasks. I didn't know how to time manage very well also. So example, like my patient, maybe their wound needs to be dressed. After a while, you realize that so I remember this one experience, right, where I spent so much time dressing the wound. It was so nice. It's so satisfying to look at, right, because I tied it up so nicely, right. Then after that, the doctor came. Then the doctor was like, "Yeah, open it up, please, because I want to take a look." So it would, things like this like really waste your time, because after that you have to do it again. So I think now as a more senior staff, you are more familiar with the routines, right? So you're like, okay, roughly about this time, like maybe I won't do it so early. After maybe I hand over to my next shift when I'm a bit more free, then I'll like do things like my wound dressing. So I think once you kind of, again, familiarize yourself with the routines and know what to do at which particular time or what's urgent and what you should prioritize, right? Then I think then you also have a better picture of like, okay, this particular time I might be a little bit free. I can go for a break. Even if I can't go for my full break, I can at least like still go to the back, maybe take some snack bars or like the Japanese snacks that I stock in my locker after I come back from the leave, you know. Then you find time to take your breaks here and there. So it might not be a full break, but you definitely can slot in those periods of time to rest a little bit.
So there's no like fixed break period in your shift, but you have to like work out with.
We try, but then sometimes it's really dependent on that day, dependent on the condition, and dependent also on your neighboring partners.
Yeah.
Then we try to work out what's best amongst us.
Cover for each other.
Yeah.
I guess it's not so much different from people who have to work like in the service line, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes like afternoon, just a lot of customers, then they cannot
Correct.
take their break.
Correct.
So they take their break later instead.
Correct.
Actually, in terms of, because from what I get it so far today, I feel like as nurses, you are super multifaceted. You guys do so many things other than, like bedside care. You do the social media. You're part of the council. In terms of like career progression in this case for nurses, now you guys are doing so many different things. What's the progression like now? How does it look like for the future?
I think for us now, I think where our rank wise and like our age in nursing wise, right?
Yeah.
I think it's still very heavily focused on clinicals. I think that's why for TTSH especially, we've been pushing very hard for hybrid nurses, because even though I'm doing social media, he's doing work life and informatics.
Yes.
Ultimately, the people that we serve are our ground nurses. So that clinical foundation, and I think like just staying connected and making sure what you're doing is relevant and truly advocating for what the nurses need on the ground, I think is really important. So I think in terms of progression and all that, it's still very heavily focused on our clinical work and what we do in our wards, which is quite, I think it's been established for the past few years also.
So when you have to do work for your CCA, is that
Your
during
CCA, it's like an adult CCA.
Yeah, kind of.
is that during your official shift, or is that like outside of those working hours?
So for me, at this point in time, like I have protected time. So that's why I'm like hybrid nurse. So like half of my week is doing communications work and organization development work. Then the other half I'm in my ward doing shift work and clinical work.
I see.
But I think for Josh, it's a little bit more like a CCA.
So actually, it's a mixture of both.
Yeah.
I do get some protected time for this nursing work life governance council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's something that came very easily. I feel like as with any job, right, when you want to take on an added portfolio and all that, you really need to prove and show that you can cope and that you really have that skill set. I think that's why for us, we only started to get these portfolios when we were a little bit more senior and we've worked for a few more years already, and not something that like you immediately get from the start. Yeah.
Our focus still remains the same.
Yeah.
We still focus on bedside care, because ultimately, no matter what other portfolios we take up, we don't want to lose that sense of the bedside care nursing.
Yeah.
I have a question. Have you ever regretted choosing this profession? Or was there like a moment where you came close to regretting? And maybe you wanted to become an aeronautical engineer, like, okay, stuck to that.
There are moments, not gonna lie, there are moments where I feel quite emotionally drained.
Yeah.
So going back, sometimes I have to deal with patients who give me flowery language. Feels like, in the modern day lingo, it's like I didn't sign up for this shit. Yeah. But again, if you look beyond this, if you look at the broader picture, it's still to me it's still a satisfying job. It's still a satisfying career, and I find a lot of meaning, a lot of comfort, especially when I see the patient saying bye bye. I'm going back home. Yeah.
I think for me, it was a lot more apparent at the start when I first joined. Because I joined in 2020, like right after the lockdown. So
Intense.
So it was very, very intense. Like transitioning into nursing is already very intense, but transitioning into nursing during COVID time was like way worse.
hectic,
It's
right?
very, very, very
Playing the
bad.
game on hard mode, man.
Right, and like like all my family members, like they're in different industries, and everyone was just kind of staying at home, like watching TV. Then I'll be like, okay, guys, like put on my
Frontline.
uniform and like, okay, then you need to go to work. So definitely back then I was like, man, like did I choose to be in the right industry? But I think one thing that my dad said at that point in time that really stuck with me, right, was that like I think that if you weren't a nurse, you really wouldn't have the perseverance that you have now. Yeah, because like you really had to like stick to it, and I think now 5 years in, right, I'm willingly, of course, choosing to stay in this profession and to continue to be a nurse and juggle like my different portfolios. So I think over time, once you really, okay, of course, it's very easy to say retrospectively. But yeah, at this point in time, I would say no. Like, I really think that it was a good decision to stay. And I'm just really very, very thankful that, the community is so good. And our bosses and our management really have been very supportive of like all our different portfolios as well, not just in clinical work. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, right, could you each share maybe like a word of advice to people who want to become nurses or are thinking of becoming nurses?
Maybe I would say think carefully, understand that the care will only become more complex as the years goes by. And then once you have decided, and then take a leap of faith. You'll never know what tomorrow will surprise you. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I think for me, it's to really pace yourself and to be patient and give yourself that space to grow. I think a lot of nurses have this misconception when you come in, right? Because the expectation that you have to take care of someone, like someone's life is in your hands, right? So you place a lot of expectations on yourself to know everything from the start. But I think like really just give yourself that time to really grow and figure out like who you are as a nurse and beyond nursing, who you really are and your identity there. I think that will be really, really helpful.
Wow. Those are I like that it's actually very real kind of advice because it's not an easy job.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also very encouraging at the same time. So thank you guys for the advice.
Thank you so much. And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.